I am 93 years old, and I was married for 58 years to the same man, the same bed, the same arguments, the same silence at the kitchen table. And if you'd asked me at 40 what marriage would look like after 65, I would have laughed. I would have said we'll be fine. We've already survived the hard part. But I was wrong, because after 65, your marriage doesn't just continue. It changes into something you've never navigated before. And nobody warned you. Not your mother, not your friends, not even your husband. So if you are sitting next to the same person you've been sitting next to for decades, and something feels different, this message is for you, because I've been exactly where you are, and I wish someone had told me what I am about to tell you. My husband Thomas and I got married in 1959. I was 26. He was 28. We raised 3 children. We buried his mother and my father. We survived a layoff, a flood, and a year where we barely spoke. We thought we'd been through everything. And then we turned 65, and a whole new kind of hard started. If you are in a long marriage and you are feeling things you can't quite name, I want you to know it is not just you, and you are not losing your mind. You are entering a chapter nobody wrote the instructions for. I remember the first morning after Thomas retired. He sat at the kitchen table at 7:30, same time he'd left for work every day for 40 years. Except now he had nowhere to go, and neither did I. Number 1, retirement doesn't bring you closer. Not at first. It puts 2 strangers in the same house all day long. For 40 years, Thomas left at 7 and came home at 6. I had my routine, my kitchen, my phone calls, my quiet mornings with coffee and the newspaper, and then suddenly he was just there. Every morning, every afternoon, every room I walked into. I loved my husband, but I wanted to scream, because the house that had been mine for decades was suddenly his too. All day, every day, and I didn't know how to share it anymore. We fought more in that first year of retirement than we had in the previous 10. Not big fights, small ones, about the thermostat, about the television volume, about why he was following me from room to room like a lost puppy. It took us almost 2 years to learn that we needed time apart inside our own home. That loving someone and needing space from them can live in the same sentence. That is not betrayal. That is survival. And here is what nobody tells you about this one. Number 2, your roles will shift, and it will frighten both of you. Thomas was the one who fixed things. He was the one who drove. He was the one who handled the money and carried the groceries and changed the light bulbs in the high places. That was who he was. That was what made him feel like a man. And when his knees went bad and his hands started shaking and he couldn't grip a wrench anymore, I watched something die inside him. Not his body, his identity. The person he'd been for 60 years was disappearing, and he didn't know who was left. And I had to learn to take over things without making him feel replaced. That is a tightrope nobody teaches you to walk. You are suddenly the driver, the bill payer, the decision maker, and he is sitting in the passenger seat of his own life, trying not to fall apart. Be patient with each other in that moment, because you are both grieving. You are grieving the people you used to be, and that grief is real, even if nobody else can see it. I wish I'd known that sooner. I wish I'd been softer about it instead of frustrated, because the truth is I was scared too. I just didn't have the words for it yet. But this next one might sting a little. Number 3. The silence will get louder, and you have to decide what to do with it. When the children leave and the careers end and the phone stops ringing, you are left with something most couples have been avoiding for years: quiet. And in that quiet, every unspoken thing gets louder. Thomas and I could sit at dinner for 45 minutes without saying a word. Not because we were comfortable, because we'd run out of things to say that wouldn't start a fight. There were things from our 40s and 50s that we'd never resolved. A lie he told me about money. A time I said something about his mother that I couldn't take back. Hurts that we'd buried under busy schedules and children's homework and the noise of a full house. And now there was no noise, just us, and everything we'd been hiding behind. It was my granddaughter who said something that changed everything. She said, "Grandma, you and Grandpa don't talk to each other. You talk around each other." And she was right. So we started slowly, awkwardly, like two people learning a language they should have learned decades ago. And it was uncomfortable, but it saved us. The silence doesn't have to be the end of your marriage, but ignoring it will be. Stay with me. This one is important. Number 4, intimacy changes, and nobody tells you how to grieve that. I am going to be honest with you because nobody else will be. After 65, your body changes. His body changes. The things that used to come naturally don't come naturally anymore. And there is a grief in that nobody talks about because it feels too private to say out loud. Thomas and I went through a season where we barely touched each other, not because we didn't want to, because we didn't know how anymore. The rules had changed, and nobody gave us the new one. And I'll tell you what saved us. It wasn't anything dramatic. It was the night he reached over in bed and just held my hand. Didn't say a word, just held it. And I cried, because I'd missed him so much, even though he was right there the whole time. Intimacy after 65 isn't what it was at 30, but it can be deeper. It can be a hand on a shoulder, a forehead kiss in the kitchen, sitting close enough that your arms touch while you watch the evening news. Those things aren't less than. They're more than. They're the intimacy you earn after a lifetime together. And I want every woman listening to know that. What you have now is not the leftover version of love. It is the truest version, even when it is quiet. Especially when it is quiet. Don't let anyone tell you that chapter is over. It is not over. It just looks different now, and different can be beautiful if you let it. And now the last one. And I saved it for last because it is the one that still breaks me open. Number 5. One of you will leave first, and you need to talk about it before it happens. I know. You don't want to hear this. I didn't want to hear it either. Thomas and I never talked about it, not once. In 58 years of marriage, we never once said what happens when one of us isn't here anymore. We didn't talk about the bank accounts. We didn't talk about the house. We didn't talk about what songs to play or what to tell the grandchildren or who would call the neighbors. We avoided it like it was a curse, like saying it out loud would make it come faster. And when Thomas passed at 86, I was alone in a house full of things I didn't understand. Insurance papers in a drawer I'd never opened. A will I'd never read. Passwords I didn't have. and a grief so heavy I couldn't breathe, let alone think. If I could go back and change one thing about my marriage, it wouldn't be the fights, it wouldn't be the silence, it would be this. I would sit across from Thomas and say, we need to talk about the hard thing. The thing we've been pretending doesn't exist, because the greatest act of love in a long marriage isn't staying. It is preparing the one who stays behind. It is making sure they're not lost when you go. Have the conversation tonight, even if your voice shakes, even if he changes the subject 3 times. Keep coming back to it, because the alternative is silence. And silence doesn't protect anyone. It just leaves them alone in a room they don't recognize. So here is what I want to leave you with tonight. Marriage after 65 is not the end of your love story, but it is a new chapter. And it is a chapter that asks more of you than any of the ones before it. More patience, more honesty, more tenderness with each other's fears. Thomas wasn't perfect. Lord knows I wasn't either. We hurt each other, we disappointed each other. There were years I wasn't sure we'd make it to the next one, but we did make it. And the years after 65, the ones nobody prepared us for, turned out to hold some of the most honest and tender moments of our entire marriage, not because they were easy, because they were true. Finally, completely true. I miss him every day, but I don't regret a single year, not even the hard ones, especially not the hard ones. If your marriage is in that strange in-between place right now, where it is not broken, but it doesn't feel right either, I want you to know that is normal. That is the chapter nobody warned you about, and you can get through it together. If you are both brave enough to try, if this reached something inside you today, leave me a comment. Tell me which one you recognized in your own marriage. I read every single one, and I carry them with me. And if there is a woman in your life who has been quiet about her marriage lately, send her this, not as advice, just as proof that someone understands. Thank you for trusting me with something this personal. I know it isn't easy, but the easy conversations never changed anyone's life. Go find him tonight. Sit a little closer than usual. You don't have to say anything. Just let your arm touch his. That is enough. That has always been enough. Some things don't need words. They just need presence. Be good to each other. You've come too far not to.